G'day guys, it's your old mate Big J here. Welcome to another edition of Aussie Boxing Talk. So today's subject is the event, now the changed event between George Kambosos Jr., former unified lightweight champion of the world, and Jake Wyllie, who has stepped in on very short notice, I think about 4 or 5 days. Jake Wyllie is a domestic level fighter with a record of, 15 fights, 1 loss, and 14 KOs. So Jake Wyllie, along with a number of people, Liam Wilson's name was also mentioned as a potential opponent for George Kambosos Jr., but Liam Wilson only fought the start of the month and had a very hard win against Youssef Dib in their rematch. So Liam Wilson will not be featuring on that card. It's the only change to the card. The rest of the card remains the same. WBC featherweight champion Sky Nicholson will be still defending her title against Tiara Brown. Shanika Johnson is still in her rematch with Nan Hughes for the WBA Bantamweight World Championship. Tiramura is still fighting his opponent. And Himi Herman, I think his name is, he's also still on the card. So it kicks off at Kudos Bank Arena in Sydney tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Daylight Savings Time. Now, this card is going to flop and flop badly in a lot of ways. I don't see this. I mean, I just looked up Ticket Tech before to get tickets, and there are a shitload left. They're only selling, I think, about 4,000 or 5,000 tickets. It's a 21,000 seat arena, right? And they're only selling maybe 5,000 of those. As I said, they'll be lucky to get 5,000 people there. No one has any interest in this fight. Even though I saw on social media the other day that George and Jake have thrown the Origin theme behind it, and those of Australia know exactly what that is. Actually, well, anyone that doesn't know what Origin is Queensland versus New South Wales in the Rugby League. So the best players from Queensland play the best players from New South Wales. New South Wales are the Sky Blues. They have a Sky Blue jersey. Queensland have a maroon jersey. Jake Wyllie is from Queensland. And George Kambosos Jr. is from New South Wales. So Eddie decided to use that, which is smart business because Origin is the biggest rivalry in the country. Bigger than anything the AFL could ever produce. More people watch Origin. It's probably I think it's the second or the third biggest watched event in the country. Behind, I think, maybe the Melbourne Cup or the Grand Finals. You've got the Melbourne Cup, two Grand Finals, and Origin is up there. So, and that's watched on TV, not actual crowd participation, watched on TV. So, it's always up there with the most watched event in television in Australia each and every year. So, I mean, the card's going to flop. I mean, I think Eddie had a bit of bad luck, even though they got extremely lucky because, as I said, there's only one game of football in Sydney, I think, this entire weekend. I think all the other teams, the Sydney teams, are all playing out of state. It's only the Rabbitohs and the Sharks that kick off at 3:30 or 3 o'clock. That'll be done by the time the fight starts. The fight starts at 5:30. Rabbitohs and Sharks will be done by 5 o'clock. And I'll give people time to switch over and they can watch all the fights. So, but this card is going to flop and flop hard. And the sheer fact of the matter is George is just not a draw. And the reason is because George keeps losing. George is the only Australian fighter that I can think of to have as many world title fights as he's had in the history of the country, right? And not just, slap shot bullshit world title fights like Anthony Mundine used to have. He used to defend his world title against absolutely nobodies, right? Like legit top 5 pound for pound. I mean, I'm pretty sure George is the only fighter from Australia to fight top 5 pound for pound fighters, top 10 pound for pound fighters. You'd have to go all the way back to probably the 60s to when Lionel Rose was a world champion to say that an Australian was fighting pound for pound, top 10 pound for pound fighters. Not even Jai Pataya, who beat Mias Briz twice, was considered top 10 pound for pound, but Devin Haney certainly was. Lomachenko certainly was, or still is. Both those two guys are in the top 10 pound for pound. So, but unfortunately, George loses badly. He was knocked out by Lomachenko in the 11th round, and Devin Haney schooled him twice. So yes, the second fight was better than the first, but the first one, he lost that fight 10 rounds to 2. He lost off the jab. I know, I was there. It was so frustrating. We were screaming at George, oh God, for fuck's sake, George, hit him. So, because as it's been proven, Devin Haney is a pillow-fisted little glass jaw. Ryan Garcia kicked the shit out of him. So, but anyway, so this card is going to flop and flop bad, and I do feel bad for George and Sky and Shanika and all that, because no one cares about the women's fight. Let's be honest, no one's jumping up and down about the women's fights, which is ridiculous, because if you look, the women in Australia, we've got 4 legit world champions. Obviously, Sky with her WBC belt, Shanika with her WBA belt, Shay Keneally with her WBA light heavyweight belt, and Desley Robinson with her IBF middleweight belt. We've got more, female world champions than what we do male champions. We've only got one, Jai Pattaya, who's on top. So, yeah, it's a bit unfortunate that this card is going to flop. There's no interest in this fight. I don't think George fighting Jake Wyllie is going to move the needle. Internationally, I think it'll flop and flop hard, because it's on at 4 o'clock in the morning in the States. Ain't no one getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning for this. And in England, it'll be, England are about 9 hours behind us. It'll kick off about 8:30 in the morning on a Friday. On a Saturday morning. So whether or not that happens, I don't know. I mean, it's actually pretty good sometimes for Australian audiences when those Dubai cards and those English cards are on, because it's all over by 10 o'clock in the morning. You wake up at 6, it's all over by 10, you got the whole day to do whatever you want. So it's actually pretty good for watching it. It's unfortunate. I don't think this is going to move the needle. And if George loses, he's done. If he can't beat Jake Wyllie, who's a domestic level fighter, right, who was in preparations for a fight with Joel Taylor. Those who know Joel Taylor, he lost to Ben Horn a couple of years ago on the Django Oplu Joseph Parker card, which again I had the privilege to go and see. So yeah, it's going to be a very, very interesting card. And if George loses, what's he going to do? He's done. He should just retire. So, as myself and T Street said, George is one of the biggest overachievers of all time. I'd call George probably the biggest one-hit wonder in Australian boxing history. I mean, look at what he's achieved and what he's done and who's he fought because of one fight, right? The Lopez victory lent to the 2 Haney fights, which led to the Lomachenko fight. And the Maxie Hughes win. If he didn't beat Maxie Hughes, which he didn't, he never would have fought Lomachenko. So, you got to give George credit. He's like the Maloneys. They'll fight anybody. They'll fight the top tier guys. But the problem is, just like the Maloneys, they keep losing. Right? And people don't like people who lose. Australians certainly don't. I mean, look at the women's soccer team. Well, that's probably a very bad example because they've never won anything. But we got behind them, then they become 4th, and now they dropped off. So, and it's popular. Well, George is not that popular because he keeps losing. It's as simple as that. People don't like watching people lose unless they want to pay to see get his head kicked in. And George ain't no bad guy. We like George. Everyone likes George. George is a good bloke. He ain't no dickhead. He doesn't do anything stupid. Right, he conducts himself in a professional manner. Him and his team. Right, they got a bit rowdy against Lopez, but Lopez is a dickhead. So no one wants to pay George. No one wants to pay to see George get his head kicked in because everyone likes George. And I said that on T Street's video. Everyone likes George. It's disappointing to see that he keeps losing. People aren't going to back him. It's like Carlton or what's the bottom feeding club in the NRL at the moment? The West Tigers. Everyone's sick of the West Tigers. Everyone's like, oh God, because they keep losing. I don't think any of the West Tigers players are bad players. I don't see any scandals or anything like that, or them acting the fool in the off season or anything like that, but they keep losing. They're bottom feeder clubs. I think St Kilda in the AFL would be a better example because at least Carlton won at least one premiership. They won back in 95. They haven't won for 30 years, but at least they've won once. St Kilda haven't won since 1966. So eventually people are just going to get sick of it. They're just sick and tired of seeing this guy lose. I mean, George's record in Australia is abysmal. World title fights, he's 0-3. I can't think of any Australian that's fought in Australia for world title fights that actually has lost more than they've won. Let me just run through my head here. Even Danny Green got a couple of wins when he was IBO champ. Danny Green won the WBA light heavyweight title in Australia. Mundine won his 2 WBA super middleweight titles and the IBO middleweight title in Australia. Who else has got a... Jeff Horn got the biggest win of all time in Australia. I'm just trying to think who actually has a worse record for world title fights in Australia. I know Billy Dibb lost to Tevin Farmer for the IBF super featherweight. That was a few years back. I'd have to look it up, but George's record in Australia for world title fights is 0-3. Go and find me another fighter who's got a record that poor. But anyway, like everything, I wish all the guys and girls luck. Good luck to George, Sky, Shanika. Well, I honestly thought Nina Hughes won that first fight, and I wouldn't be surprised or upset if neither won the rematch. Seriously, so I thought Nina Hughes Shanika got a gift decision in that fight. I didn't think that she won. Turmoil, he'll just level whoever's in front of him. And all the other fighters, good luck to them, good health. I'm a bit upset I'm not there. Eddie Hearn, keep trying, mate, because, No Limit can't have the monopoly. I'm not really upset if No Limit have the monopoly. Actually, to be honest, if No Limit has the monopoly, it'd probably be better because it'd be run like the UFC. If No Limit runs their show like the UFC, that's only going to be good for Australian boxing, not bad. Because if you have to go to one entity, but all the fights get made. If everyone's like, yep, I'm with No Limit, and that No Limit has a monopoly and every single fighter goes through No Limit, you're doing all right. Because you can have fights like, what's a good example of a fight that you'd want to see? Well, No Limit don't really have any cruiserweights. But anyway, hopefully it's a good thing. Hopefully the guys stay healthy, have a good win. George needs a knockout. George needs a knockout badly. I hope he knocked Jake Wyllie out within 4 rounds, because if it goes to decision, it's going to be worse for George, and I don't want that for George. So, as always, guys, have a great day. Tackle the ball, wrestle a crockhead, and yourselves the fuck up. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you another day.